So today I want to talk to you guys about something that is honestly kind of weird in video games and something that I feel like a lot of people think shouldn't happen, but kind of does. And that is the fact that in many games, including Overwatch and League and Smash Bros. And probably the up and coming Dragon Ball Fighters, in all these different games, it's kind of hard to buff the worst heroes. And you'd think in a lot of cases, why is that hard? They're obviously the worst heroes. They're obviously the worst characters. Just give them some numbers buffs and get them up to where everybody else is. But today I'm going to talk about why it is hard to buff these heroes and why it's so hard to get them in a good place. Because what I want you to think about is that Blizzard doesn't hate these heroes. Blizzard doesn't, make a character and say, you know what, I completely hate that character. I put hundreds of hours into work into them, but I don't like them, so I'm not going to make them any good. That's not how it is. It's just that they're having trouble figuring out how to change these characters and how to balance them. And today, again, I'm going to talk about why so many of the worst heroes just simply can't really get traditional buffs, and why a lot of them don't really get buffs. And really, the root cause of all of this, and the root cause of a lot of the character problems, is just the way that their kits are designed. And it's not that they have bad or, unidealistic or, uncreative kits. It's that a lot of their kits are just hard to balance by design, and in some cases they might just slip into the game and be really, really good, or just be a fun character, like let's say Genji maybe, but in a lot of other cases, characters just kind of have troubles with their kit, and some characters are just very unique, and that makes it kind of hard for them. I'm going to say for a lot of the characters that the worst heroes in the game, which I'm going to talk about later, by the way, I'm going to talk about exact hero examples, so if you want me to talk about those, I guess just skip like halfway into the video. But anyways, I'm talking about the heroes with that are pretty bad with these kits. And one thing about them is that usually their kits are really good at one thing, or okay at a lot of different things, but it's kind of hard to keep them in check. And I think that's kind of what you want to remember today about all the different characters they're going to be talking about later. They do have something good about them. I'm going to use Hanzo as an example that I'll talk about later as well. Hanzo's arrow is good. It can one-shot, it can do a lot of damage. Theoretically, it's one of the best weapons in the entire game if you can always get 100% of your headshots. But at the same time, making it too good is kind of hard to tell. Where's the line? When is it good? When is it bad? And just the way the Hanzo's arrow works as far as consistency, it's just kind of hard to keep in balance for the majority of players. And I guess that's something as well. Keeping a character balanced for the top level players compared to the rest of the players is something that the developer does have to think about. And a lot of the times, some of the worst characters are playable in top 500 and are playable in esports a little bit, so they won't give them a buff. But I guess that's a whole different matter. Anyways, again, though, I feel like the main thing to remember is that a lot of the people's kits still are okay. It's just that they're only really good at one exact thing. And the thing about being good at one exact thing is that oftentimes, if you just buff pure numbers with these characters, I think that they've kind of figured out that it just makes these heroes feel really OP or not really any better. Again, I guess with Hanzo we could give an example. If they buff the arrow hitbox, just pretty much a number, just make the hitbox bigger, that could make him meta. That could make him a good character. However, where's the line between him becoming a okay character that's about as good as Soldier and Hanzo, not as Hanzo, Soldier and Kree and all these other characters, and where's the line where he just immediately pops up way better than them because he has more headshot potential than everyone else, so he can pop off way easier? It's kind of hard to tell with a lot of these characters, and just buffing pure numbers with them oftentimes either will make them overpowered, or on the other hand, not any better. Some of the characters are really good at what they do, but buffing what they do won't really help way too much. And I think that could kind of be like with the health packs on Sombra. If they buff the hack time by like a second, that wouldn't really change that much. And oftentimes they do try little buffs and little nerfs on these characters, but it just doesn't always work. And a thing to say about these heroes is that these are very unique heroes, and they can do things that other heroes can't, but that is a bad thing in one situation and in one mindset, because it means that it's very hard to balance them. Again, coming back to the balancing problems. I think it's really just the easiest example saying it's like balancing apples and oranges together, because comparing Mei to Soldier, they're completely different types of characters that do completely different types of things. One's a stalling character that has a really nice ultimate, while the other one's, I guess, a super good DPS that's very consistent. That, again, I guess that's a nice ultimate. So there you go. There's something in common with them. But trying to balance things that don't really just coordinate with each other and don't really match with each other is really hard. And when you compare, again, McCree and Soldier, all you have to do is really buff or nerf their numbers, and they can become just about as good as each other. But with Mei, it's not exactly the same thing, and that's where a lot of the developers just kind of get in trouble. Most of these characters' kits is also something that creates a problem for them. Most of the characters that are not that good right now have kits that work in good situations for them. Like, if they're on a very good map, I'm going to use Doomfist with an example here. If you're on a map like Eichenwald on defense as Doomfist, you can do okay with this kit. Even though he's not very good right now and his win rate's terrible, if you're on Eichenwald and you just keep going in on defense, E, shift, shoot, shoot, and then jump out with your rocket punch, it'll work out for you, and you'll actually be able to do pretty dang well. So if you're in a good situation with one of these kits, you can do better than some of the best meta characters. But if you're not in a good situation, a lot of their kits just kind of fall apart. And I'm going to talk about that in more specific terms later, but that's a problem because it makes it that they're only good in certain situations, and that's why you see so many characters in esports only on one map or in one situation or on one point, and then they swap off, and it's kind of hard to say exactly what they can do to fix that. Finally, I'm going to say, though, about this and, the general section is that most of the kits of these characters, by design, just really aren't way too mega meta viable. They can be okay in certain situations, and if you main them 100%, you can do well as them. But a lot of the times they just aren't too good, or they don't have that great of numbers, or just the way that their kit works means that either, again, they're going to have to be too good, or they're going to have to be too bad, and it's easier to lead these characters as too bad as a developer, because, you don't have to worry about balancing them way too well. So I'm going to say, a lot of these characters could maybe use a rework, and I think Hanzo's a really good example. While he does work in top 500, people are popping off, you got Raxu and other characters, I personally like a rework for his kit. Personally, I'd like something like a Frost Arrow and a Thunder Arrow and a Fire Arrow and stuff like that, or even just a line that people can walk on and get trapped in. I don't know, just random examples. But a lot of these characters could use something like that. Instead of just buffing their numbers, getting a rework. And I know that will take a long time, and a lot of times they're focusing on reworking the best characters because they're already so good that they want to make so that they take a little more skill than just existing. But still, I'm kind of hopeful in the future that there will be quite a few more changes to heroes and quite a few more reworks for these bad heroes, because they could really use them probably more than the heroes that are already being played quite a bit. Now, we're done with this section. We're done with the general section about why I feel like a lot of the times it's just really hard to get these heroes buffs in the first place. But here we go. I'm going to try to talk about specific hero examples as quickly as I can. I have 5 characters that are not the exact top 5 worst characters, but they're very close. It's all in the top 6 or 7 or something like that. So here we go with that. I want to talk about why their kits just kind of have troubles being balanced. So with Hanzo, I don't want to talk about this for too long. It's kind of hard with Hanzo because, again, he is kind of viable, but extremely hard to play as, and if you buff his arrow, or if you buff his scatter, or anything like that, it often feels very hard to play versus, and mainly it feels kind of cheap. It's just not that fun to play against, and I guess that's a thing that's also a problem about a lot of these characters' kits, but Blizzard doesn't really want that to be how the game works, so that's why I feel like Hanzo can't really get a buff to his main arrow, but maybe to some of the other parts of his kit, those could maybe get something. People also hate scatter, though, so that'd be kind of hard. For Sombra's kit, a lot of people are actually fine with how it is. Even though she's the worst character in the game as far as win rate, a lot of people are still finding at least a little bit of success with her because her kit really is, quite honestly, pretty overloaded. It has a lot of different things it can do. She can do quite a bit of damage, has one of the best ults in the game. But her win rate still kind of sucks. So it's kind of hard to balance her out because I think if they buff her just a little bit, not even a little bit, but if they give her something new or if they buff her too much, I think she could easily just dominate the meta, while at the same time, you can't just really give her, again, a buff that's like, hey, you can hack 1 second faster on health packs. That's not going to really change as much as she needs. So, again, Sombra, I feel like, is kind of in a hard time with that. Mei is also kind of difficult because you can't really just buff the time on her E cooldown because that won't really change way too much. You can't really buff the healing or the time on her shift or the ice. That won't really do too much. If you buff her ultimate too much, I feel like she could become a little bit too powerful. And of course, if you buff her damage or her freeze, well, it loses a lot of the counterplay and is really annoying to play against. So I don't think a lot of people would be for that way too much as well. Also, if they got rid of all of the icicle drop off, people would probably get annoyed from being one-shot by icicles, just as they're already getting annoyed by being one-shot by Hanzo arrows. Again, something that's kind of hard, and I feel like they will have to make some rework changes to this character to kind of fit that in. Bastion's, I think, the easiest example of all these characters. He actually was a character that got a kit rework, and for a while, he was really good. So good that if you were anywhere below Grandmaster, you just had to have a Bastion, otherwise you were legitimately just screwed. Or you had to have a team that knew how to play against him really, really well. A nice dive comp or something with D.Va or something like that. But kind of how Bastion works in the Sentry mode is that either he's just the best, does the most damage, can be protected the easiest, and kind of wins with the most damage, or he's just useless because you can dump him in too fast and he just dies. I don't know exactly how they can fix this again, but they'd have to change something about his Sentry mode. to make so that he could just not be in that situation where he's always stuck somewhere, because that kind of makes, so again, he has to be the best or the worst, and that's really hard for him, and that's why I feel like he can't really get way too many changes. And then finally, talking about Doomfist, of course, the character I always talk about, he's kind of hard too, because people hate one-shot abilities, but at the same time, his whole kit's kind of based off the punch, and with it not being that good right now, he can't be consistent, but if they buff it up, people will be pissed off, because then it'll be good, and that's just one part of his kit that is kind of like the only good thing, I guess, but now it's not even the only good thing. It's kind of confusing with Doomfist as well, and I don't really feel like he can get buffs. Maybe they'll have to change something about his kit, or maybe make him into more of a bruiser than an assassin. That could also work as well. But there you go, those are all the characters in specific that I wanted to talk about, and why they can't really get buffs as well. As you can see, it's just kind of a mess for these characters, and they do just need something reworked about them, I feel like. And I feel like they still are playable. If you really, really want to play one of these guys, you know, that's fine, you can do that, but just don't really expect many buffs for quite a while, as Blizzard has obviously not really tried to fix them up way too much. And expect that if there is a buff eventually, it is probably going to be a rework for one of these characters instead of just a plain out buff. Because again, their kits can't really intake certain buffs. And while maybe Blizzard could be nice and give some, you know, small damage buffs to certain characters to make them at least a little bit better, unlike Doomfist, make them do a little bit more damage or something like that. I don't know. I don't really feel like that would fix the problem about the characters, but it might help their win rate at least a little bit. So maybe they could do that. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. I haven't really heard much people talk about why the worst heroes aren't getting buffs. I'm trying to cover any topics that I don't feel like are talked about way too much, but maybe this is just all my own opinion, and maybe it's not really right in your opinion. So if you do have your own opinion, make sure to leave it down in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, as always, press that like button and press the subscribe button or that notification button, as it's just one step further beyond, as Goku would say. I've been watching a little bit too much Super lately. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a wonderful day.